The Naked Gun is one of the most memorable comedy series of all time. The original trilogy was released from 1988 to 1994, during the golden age of spoof comedy, and would go on to reshape the genre for better and for worse. Based on the 1982 series Police Squad, which itself was a satire of cop dramas, director David Zucker mixes a very straight-laced deadpan delivery with cleverly written dialogue and an over-the-top absurdist environment. And it makes for a movie that is both a loving send-up and a brutal ribbing of 70s cop shows. And whether you like that genre or not, there is so much to be appreciated here. There are so many blink and you miss it sight gags and tons of physical comedy and plenty of great one-liners and sharply written wordplay. It's a movie that begs to be seen multiple times just to catch everything. The movie is also partly responsible for re-establishing Leslie Nielsen as an actor, as up until that point, he was mostly known for serious roles in sci-fi and disaster movies. But it was the 1-2 punch of The Naked Gun and 1980s Airplane that reinvented him into a genuine comic talent. And with Nielsen's legacy and genre shift in mind, the fact that there is a new Naked Gun sequel coming out starring an actor famous for serious roles with the initials LN seems almost too perfect to be a coincidence. Frank Drebin is hilarious in both the TV show and the movies, and they're both very different performances. The show's comedy comes from his deadpan delivery and his interactions with the bizarre world he lives in. The movies still retain a lot of that deadpan delivery, but they lean into a lot more of the absurdist humor, funny reaction faces, and physical comedy. And Nielsen does both tremendously well. The rest of the cast is a lot of fun too. Priscilla Presley, in what's essentially her only noteworthy role, is a great femme fatale and love interest, but she does well with a lot of the physical comedy as well. O.J. Simpson's presence in these movies is a bit collar-tugging in modern day, but the fact that he's used as the butt of a lot of painful physical stunts makes it sit a tad easier. Like, he genuinely spends most of the first movie comatose, and he keeps getting injured in increasingly brutal ways. It's pretty satisfying to watch. I don't think there's any point in going over the individual stories of the film. One, because they're more or less the same, and two, because they're all pretty typical cop movie stories where a villain puts together an elaborate plan to kill a bunch of people, and it's up to one man to save the day. They play into the tropes really well, and they weirdly do well at giving Frank an arc across the three films. But these movies don't really live or die by the story. It's all about how well the humor has aged. The first is, of course, the best. There's some absolutely iconic routines and hilarious sight gags. It goes at a pretty solid pace, and it keeps the gags going without feeling like overkill. The only time it ever drags is whenever the villain shows up and Drebin isn't there. But other than that, this is a 4 out of 5, an absolute classic. The second one leads a lot more into the slapstick and plays up Drebin's bumbling nature. There are still some pretty cleverly written lines and some fun bits, but nothing that was as constantly funny as the first movie. I liked Uncle Vernon as the scientist and Robert Goulet as a fun villain. But ultimately, it was still good, just not great. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. The third film is an interesting case because it has a lot of memorable gags, but it's the one that I like the least. Again, it's still a fun movie with some really great moments, but it leans really heavily into the slapstick, has a lot more pop culture references, and a few jokes that haven't exactly aged well. Like this transphobic bit, which I feel like was cheap and poor taste even by 1994 standards. Still, a good movie, just the weakest of the three. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. And finally, with all this in mind, how does the new Naked Gun starring Liam Neeson stack up compared to the rest of the series? Well, I'm thrilled to say, really damn good. It's been a minute since I've laughed this hard and this often in a movie, but The Naked Gun is hilarious. Not all the jokes work, but for every joke that doesn't land, there are about 6 more that absolutely do. What I appreciated about this movie is that it emulates a lot of the same comedy styles as the original, a lot of puns, slapstick, and fourth wall breaks, but it doesn't try to completely recapture The Naked Gun from 1988. These are two completely different movies parodying two completely different types of movies, and they both work incredibly well. Liam Neeson is great in this role for the same reason that Leslie Nielsen was in the original. His deadpan delivery mixed with the writing is hysterical. Pamela Anderson was also really fun to watch as Beth, and her and Frank have some great moments together. Stryker from X-Men Origins is the villain in this movie, and even he gets a few laughs, which wasn't the case for the previous Naked Gun villains. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin any jokes, but I was very happy with how this movie turned out. Your enjoyment of it will completely depend on your sense of humor, but if you like the other three, then I think you'll enjoy this one. And above all else, it's just so good to see a genuinely great spoof comedy in theaters again. Let's just hope Scary Movie 6 and Spaceballs 2 keep up this winning streak.
Going to my ranking, I'd have to give Naked Gun 2025 a 4 out of 5.